Yeah, alrighty. Let's move this up a little bit. Cool. Can y'all hear me okay? Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Joel. I'm the Senior Director of Platform Engineering at TAG. And today we are going to be talking about practical AI within SRE, delivery, and cloud engineering. Probably not going to go so much into cool microservices as the last talk, but this talk really is to meet people where they're at. Look, a lot of us are probably right now looking at infrastructure, AI, networking. Some of us are probably even judging like what to do with our careers, right? Like I don't know about y'all, but like it feels like if I'm not a data scientist at this point, kind of falling off a little bit, right? It's like, well, you're not doing big data, you're not doing AI. Well, yuck, you're like just a DevOps guy. You used to be cool. But no, so a little bit about me. I am a Google developer expert first and foremost. I also run the local Google developer group meetups here if you are a member. Who is anyone here a member? Please, yeah. All right, yeah. All right, cool. And if you're not, feel free to join. So some of the things I like to do, there's some software there, with my X handle and my LinkedIn, and yes, I do have that sword hanging on my wall. I get that a lot. So I always like to start because we have a wide audience and this is a really big room. This is an awesome. So thank you, Community AI Camp, for having me today. So really, like, how did we end up here, right? Like with all this stuff in AI, and honestly, it's not any different than most things in terms of AI innovation or innovation curves, right? There's usually like that early adopter period where all like, oh yeah, cool, I'll believe it one day when people start adopting it. And there's that scary chasm between something that's cool and something that's practical. So let's just kind of walk through it. Late 2021, 2022, we had the ChatGPT. It was around like November and Christmas. I remember kind of just messing with it, talking to this thing on the website, asking questions like, how many words are there in 19? And it goes, there are 9. You're like, wait, no, there's 12. You're right, there's 12. And it's like, are you sure about that? So, it was cool. You're talking to a computer. We all had our AI future mindset, right? We're all like, oh, this is the future, man. Like, this is it. Like, we're going to be in the Matrix. We're gonna talk to the computer. It's going to do all this work for us one day. And then 2023, we started diving into, like, videos and images. And we got Spaghetti Will Smith. Obviously at this point, everyone's like, oh, see, this is why AI cannot be used for creatives. This is why. It'll never adopt. It'll never grow. This is horrible. Do you think this is really going to be used commercially? Come on now. And then we get 2024. That's when we started seeing like the shift into like AI within the engineer landscape. So you started seeing every single IDE that you could think of, whether new or small, fork of VS Code or not. If you went to any technology conferences or there was a vendor booth, you may as well just slapped now with AI and everyone that's trying to sell you software, because that's everything that they talked about. And really at the end of the day, it was just a chatbot where you could kind of talk to it. And then, here we are in 2025. It's the era of AI in the enterprise. We are in the Microsoft Office, which they have a great footprint inside of Microsoft Copilot, right? We have our friends in Google. They're doing Gemini and VO3. We have folks at OpenAI doing things within Sora and beyond. I certainly have created a Sam Altman meme of me and him kind of, shaking hands or something. It's funny. But we also still have, AI Spaghetti Will Smith. And it's crazy. Like, it's kind of funny because I always use this as kind of like a guide to like show how much progress we have. That was in less than 2 years. Like, this is how far that technology's come. And I finally feel validation for it because there's officially a wiki that I did not create on Wikipedia, where there's actually a thing known as the Will Smith Speaking Spaghetti Test to show like content generation. So hence, it's pretty good. All love to Will Smith, no diss at all. But he certainly loves his pasta. So, again, grounding things, remember that there's 2 forms of AI. And again, this talk was more so structured at folks who are either cloud engineers, site reliability engineers, or delivery engineers, working on DevOps, former DevOps, trying to figure out, hey, what landscape do I fall in? At the end of the day, there's 2 camps. You're either generating things or you're predicting things. Both of them are very important. Both of them have different things at the end of the day. One of those, in generative AI, you're going to find a lot of things in terms of creating new things, generating new things, hence generative AI, duh. You're learning from the best, from massive data sets, and you typically see things like art, the spaghetti Will Smith, design. Hey, generate me a diagram for this complex thing, or software development. I mean, how many of us kind of use Gen AI kind of nowadays, and whether Windsurf or whatever, Visual Studio Code? Yeah, cool. That being said, it's prone to hallucinations, and it can be non-deterministic. Why? Because you're basically just saying, how do I make an S3 bucket? And I can guarantee you, if I ask that question, to those who here do AWS, some folks will say Terraform, some folks will say Python, some folks will say Shell, some folks will just go in the console with 1, 2, 3, 4, click, 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 right? It's not a single way of doing it. Predictive AI, on the other hand, you're forecasting futures based on, hopefully, clean data. You need historical data for accurate predictions. And this is something that's sometimes can be problematic. So where do you see this? Mostly in finance. Folks that kind of want to predict where to invest money in. They look at historicals. They say, hey, every year, insert company A does this, and it seems to go up by 20%. If it's been good for the last 20 years, you could probably assume that there's a good chance of it happening again. Not always the best advice. Do not invest on my horrible AI information. Within healthcare, there's a good sign that majority of us are human, and we all have, I'll use an example of where I'm at. We all have, hopefully, either teeth, whether they're new or replaced. And at one point, generally teeth have similar things, whether you have cavities, dentures, right? Very kind of limited data sets. Retail and analytics, the thing I'll say is your data becomes very key. You have less of it. That being said, it's your best thing and also your worst thing. Bad data, bad results. But that's kind of, if you're a data scientist, that's true. So that's it, right? Just go do AI everything. Just productivity. That's what I'm hearing. But really, I don't know. Even myself is thinking about this. What should I do? Should I be doing ML ops? Should I go learn about how to use Gemma, or should I go figure out how to do GPT OSS? Am I not doing my job if I don't understand these models and how to build inside of AI Foundry? A lot of us are being told by our bosses, including myself. Hi Jeff, if you're watching this, to look. We have to do AI. We're challenging you to do AI. And it's frustrating because, especially if you don't know where to start, a lot of us probably don't, including myself. So we're often stuck in these hype cycles, right? I saw on LinkedIn, if we do this, hey, why don't we do it like this, right? And we're all just kind of tossing everything in the wall. I like this. This was actually generated by, I don't remember which one, but I said, generate me an image of a chaotic team, actually a 5 pizza team, kind of deciding an AI future, and you can see one guy has pizzas and stuff. But really, there's a gap, right? Data science and teams are building models, but operations teams are deciding, hey, what's in this for us? Where do we kind of fit into this future, right? Or are we just, I see our hype articles all the time on LinkedIn. AI is your new SRE. I don't know. If I was an SRE, I'd feel like crap. I'm the robot's taking my job, right? That's not good. So the gap. Most AI discussions nowadays, we focus on the models. We all see those GPT arenas, right? Where it's aha, Gemini is up there now, and ooh, Sora, and all these crazy things, and they're just context windows. But doesn't really talk about how to use it or how to build with it. It just kind of says which one's better. And a lot of times, folks overlook the opportunities that they have. We had this conversation with my SRE team where we were talking about, hey, I need to do ML ops to be a good SRE. Sure, totally fine. But don't forget, you as an SRE engineer, you probably sit on one of the largest data sets in most of our companies. I'm not sure if I knew there's SREs here, but if you run your own Prometheus or your open telemetry stack, you probably have the largest time series database at your company, depending on how you scrape. We scrape every 60 seconds. So that equates to roughly in our case, 5 million metrics every 60 seconds. I can tell you right now, that is definitely one of the largest data sets that we have. logs and traces, all built into this. You got to move away from like this culture of like AI for thee to AI for me. Don't think of like how to apply AI to others, but think about how I could practically use it in my day-to-day. Even if it solves like 10 to 15 minutes a day, I guarantee you, when you look at that over the years, that equates to roughly 2 weeks, right? I think that's the phrase that I'm gonna butcher it because I'm on the spot, but I think it's like 10 minutes a day is like 2 weeks a year or something like that. Look up the right quote, but there's in that. Same thing from DevOps. I would always say, remember your core principles to how you got here, right? What made you successful? Understanding the automation points that you need to do inside of your companies. Understanding bridging the gaps between all your teams. Improve what you made successful, but never forget about your core customer base. I guarantee you half of your teams are not asking for the chatbot inside of your GitLab pipelines or whatever. So with that, just as DevOps enhance development and operations, you don't have to be an ML expert to leverage AI. Drive impact with what you enjoy doing by enhancing it. All right, but easier said than done. How do we get started? First off, 2 things. Adopt AI pragmatically. I am not an AI skeptic. I use it every day. But that being said, I don't rush into just hype cycles. Think of how I can use AI to improve either my development workflow, and then if it works, extending that to the rest of my team and probably the rest of my company if you're in that position. Look at opportunities to leverage AI within monitoring and analytics. Again, I talked about small data sets. If you have a very bespoke data set, when I was initially like working on a lot of these open software projects, I used a platform called Spinnaker, and we all thought we could do ML DevOps. Let's look at all our pipelines across all the companies, and we no matter how many of us still charge our data into it, it didn't deliver the results that we expected. Even if with Netflix and Salesforce, the results were so different because everyone was unique. But with generative AI, you can start asking general questions, right? Like it may not be exact, but it'll give you a good guidance as to what to do or what to look for. And then ultimately, if you're a cloud engineer, building with like infrastructure and architecture in mind, it definitely involves. It can help a lot, especially when you're trying to understand complex topics. On the flip side, with enabling all that, figure out how you're going to measure it. 1, is the system providing better quality experience? Ask yourself that by me adding this to the platform or the tool that I'm exposing to folks, is it making it better? Do I feel that people are going to be there, or is it just going to be something that someone clicks the X and hides it away? 2, is it saving time, right? To focus on other things. Can I ask like, hey, go set this up while I go and do something else that's probably more important? And finally, are we saving money? A lot of us are being asked, especially if you're in cloud, let's save money, let's save costs, right? Unfortunately, sometimes that may be the only thing, the reason why you adopt things. And we'll get more on that later. So let's just get into it, AI and cloud engineering. So there's 3 things as a cloud engineer. You're, forgetting AI, infrastructure reliability, architecture and scale, and security and governance. Those are like what I consider like a core cloud engineer should be doing well. So 1, when it comes to things in the cloud, whether it's networking, computer storage, you are the go-to person that understands, either where those services are, maybe not exactly how to do it, but essentially you should be educated enough to say, this is what I think we should use, compute, or we need a VPN tunnel, or hey, we should use a Azure Blob Storage bucket, right? Focus on modernizing the app stack by supporting engineers to create new services through automation or whatever you do. Architecture and scale, be that ally to a lot of teams that don't understand all the complexities that is involved to run an enterprise stack. We see all these demos of within 5 minutes get AI Foundry working or Google Gemini working. Don't do that to prod. Like there's a lot of things that you have to do, especially with the demo. Data pipelines for like notoriously said, grant yourself admin. Not what you want to do in a production system. And then security and governance, you're going to be responsible for all the IAM policies. how to do some firewalls, how to restrict it at the service level. Obviously, we have friends in security and networking that can help extend this and help grow this, and that's ultimately their responsibility, but it starts with us. It's security at the end of the day, is a popular phrase. It's with all of us to do, whether you're a cloud engineer or a security engineer by trade. So with that, on that note, as a cloud engineer, you have the responsibility to ensure that adopting AI adheres to your base protocols. Don't leak your secrets. So ensure that you're using enterprise versions. Make sure that your company is either using Gemini Enterprise or M365 Copilot. If you are using open stuff like gemini.google.com or ChatGPT with no login, your data will be trained. If you upload files to it, it will be used for training purposes. That's the whole reason why those things are free. It's free. I think we talked about it a little bit on the last call. They will use that data for better or worse. So it's our responsibility to ensure that we are using trusted, whether they're models or enterprise tooling. IAM analysis. You're also going to be asked for, hey, what permissions can those tools do? What networks does it have access to? And hey, this is where you can get meta, not meta as in Facebook, but meta in the sense that use AI to look at complex IAM policies and say, hey, show me which services use editor role in the last 90 days based on the logs, right? And then finally, architectural guidance. It's more than just knowing how to use AI. In the future, you should look to be an ally to your engineers trying to navigate this complex landscape. So, not going to toss too much architecture, but here's a structure of essentially an ETL pipeline running in Google Cloud to do model training. Now, as a cloud engineer, I may not know BigQuery ins and outs. I may not know cloud storage. I may not know Vertex AI, but I can tell you right now, I know how to access a bucket securely over a network, right? That doesn't go away with this technology, with AI. If anything, that becomes hugely more important than before. So again, don't focus on learning all these little boxes. Focus on how these boxes connect to one another, or rather, be an expert as to how to secure these little boxes. Same thing goes for Azure. Again, I'm a GDE, but here I am talking about Azure too. Yep. Look, AI Foundry, the same problem exists there, and it's not even a problem. It's just understanding that, hey, Azure AI needs private endpoints, so we're not exposing things on the public internet. We want to make sure that we use express routes to talk to our on-premise. We want to make sure that we look at Azure OpenAI, again, enterprise versus just general open source. Again, it's our responsibility as cloud engineers to look at that data layer. Also, CI/CD. I mean, all these tutorials are great. You go into a console, you launch it, it's good. But what about day 2? I don't know about you, but once it works, I want to make sure I have something that's repeatable. That doesn't go away. CI/CD is still a structure. This is a Google Cloud example, but there's also things with GitHub and GitHub Actions. But totally, this does not change. So again, in terms of what changes for me, it's arguably knowing some of the how to build essentially models or repeatable pipelines. And then ultimately the infrastructure. How many of us consider ourselves data analysts? Anyone? Okay, good. I see a few hands. Okay. Who here knows, of those data analysts, do you feel confident that you can maintain a highly available network that's multi-region? Or do you rely on your infra partners? I'm sure you folks know, but do you want that responsibility, or do you just want to focus on building great data pipelines, data app projects? So that connectivity is going to be extremely important. More importantly, supporting those teams that use these platforms as cloud engineers, they're going to come to you saying, hey, I need to access this data model that's in this project, that's in stage or prod, right? You need to have your governance and remember your core principles, right? A lot of these tools kind of rush us into these hype cycles like, hey, you have to adopt, I have to get the data from stage and from prod. No, we've always said keep stage segregated away from prod, right? Why are we making exceptions all of a sudden now just for the sake of AI? Same thing, again, another example, whether you're in AI studio, right? You're still gonna have to figure out your ins and outs from all these platforms. And there's also some diagrams. I'll share these slides out, I'm sure, if you want to scan the QR code. building, breaking out essentially what it means to be a platform engineer into all the components. I like this slide because it was actually from a code lab, and I'll put, again, the slide content there. But it broke down, like, all the things that are involved to essentially have, like, an end-to-end light cloud run, or similar to Azure Functions, to run like a serverless MCP in this case. So there's still DevOps involved. There's still observability, because I guarantee you, if your logs suck when you are running microservices, your logs are going to suck when you're running AI. So unfortunately, you do not get to bypass that. The network and all the extensions of it, the security, what can you prompt, what should you not prompt, storage, where to store all this data, and how to access these models can be very important. So again, just to call out, there was a few of them. There was one for developers and architects and DevOps SRE. It was one of the cooler code labs. It does involve, I think, for some labs, I think there were $1 for the lab, and I think for the more complex one, the SRE one, I think it was $5 because it used GPUs. But they're definitely super cool, and if you have like a corporate program to take some of these, I would recommend you check them out. Look. As infrastructure engineers and cloud engineers, we should be looking at IAC for automation in the sense of prompting our infrastructure to say, hey, you're a seasoned cloud engineer who knows Terraform. Provide me an example of how to set up a Terraform, using Terraform, set up DNS in a cloud router. And boom, you get output. Again, a lot of that before was a lot of stitching it together. In this case, you're using AI. This one's actually super cool. This is something that I just vibe coded the other day because it's end of year and we're all looking at how much money we spent this year. I hate using BigQuery because I am a dumb DevOps boy with just a small peanut brain who doesn't know how to write SQL. But I had AI look at detailed billing logs and create me a dashboard. I had it write like a BigQuery and essentially plot it out. Again, using AI to identify and support other AI initiatives. So shifting gears for AI and site reliability engineering. There are 3 things as site reliability engineers you're going to want to consider. Observability and monitoring. That's your first and foremost thing. That's literally in the title. You are an SRE engineer. You are monitoring sites. Incident response, and then ultimately how to prevent and be proactive. You hear the SLA, SLOs on the Google books, right? A way you could use with an SRE is most of these platforms, whether you're on Google or inside of Azure, they have Copilot built right into the platform where you can ask questions of your infrastructure. Hey, how do I create a resource group? Or in this case, how to create a Cosmo DB. Over here, you can use it to look at a very complex log entry. That's not a very good complex log entry, but hey, tell me what's up. What does this mean? I have no idea what service usage batch enable means. Here it's saying that, hey, there's a few services that were enabled by Joel. This is normal. Don't worry. This one's actually super cool, and this is actually where you can kind of detach a little bit away from Gemini and Copilot. Who here uses OTel? I heard the prior talk mention OpenTelemetry, Prometheus, anything from application metrics? Yeah. So one thing, we had an outage, and we had a microservice that really no one knew at the time how to support, but it did have a metrics endpoint. So we asked it, look at this service and give me a few Grafana queries, or rather Prometheus queries, to investigate potential issues related to 5xx. It generated a set of dashboard panels, and it gave us some pretty cool things. This is a basic example for a demo, but imagine if you're kind of going in from a forensics perspective, never seeing a microservice. Some of us work at large companies with, I think I heard the last talk, 23. I'm sure some of us have more than that. Asking questions of your small data to generate dashboards or generate queries. And it was actually super cool to see that. And I kind of hinted it on it earlier. We're using it specifically like a tag, and again, this is a practical example, not really anything codified here, to look at predictive analytics. Based on a year's trend, we could tell, hey, what the seasonal, the quarterly, the monthly, the weekly max was, and also what was the lowest, and plot a line, whatever, based on that window, to say, when are we off? So on the far right, hey, something happened here that was out of norm. At 12 o'clock, we all of a sudden broke the norm. Is that expected? Doesn't look too crazy, but I can tell you right now, the one on the left, something definitely doesn't smell right. So again, using AI for to look at historical and predictive analytics. Another one is automated post-mortem analysis agents. So a lot of us are kind of caught, and again, this is where I kind of like to use the word hype cycle, of multi-agent workflows. Multi-agent workloads. Yet we don't even have a single agent working for ourselves. Here we are talking about like 5 or 7 agents talking to one another. Start small. Hey, I'm gonna use an enterprise-grade, generative AI tool, feed it a bunch of context from an outage, like timelines, maybe some chat history, maybe some logs and metrics, and say, hey, based on what was talked about, generate me a post-mortem, and give me 3 action items to help prevent things like in the future, right? So once you start doing that, though, you start building a path for multi-agent workflows. Again, kind of not saying that multi-agent workflows are bad. I don't mean to diss it. Sorry, that's what we do from a day-to-day. But if you break this down, we started on step 6. The next thing we're gonna say is, oh, well, I had to do that manually. I had to go and download the Excel. I had to go download that Teams or that Slack history. Yuck. What if, when it's resolved, all that just gets past my agent? So I'm gonna make a resolve agent. When something gets resolved, send it automatically to the post-mortem agent. Well, now, but I still have to trigger that resolve agent. Like, I know when I'm in the remediation, like when I'm actually looking at logs, so why don't I have something actually like investigating and remediating it, fixing the issue at real time? And as you can see, as you start building either backwards or forwards in some cases, you start breaking down this problem. Again, don't just tackle like multi-agent workflows, but like that's a practical design of, hey, where should I start and how to extend back? And then ultimately tie it back to reporting, because things like this will show you where things are getting stuck. I can tell you right now that if the AI agent starts dropping off a cliff after remediate and fails to call the resolve, there's something wrong with the workflow. I probably want to know why. What's going on, whether it's a technical glitch or whether it's a problem. Okay, cool. I still have some time. So delivery engineering. This one's actually super fun because this is passion for me. One, as a delivery engineer, DevOps, whatever, you are building a great developer experience of guardrails, not gates. You're hopefully making things that make your developers love writing software. Automation and efficiency. You want to simplify implementation details, and I love to quote this a lot from Kelsey Hightower. Don't simplify it because you think that your team is too stupid to understand it. Automate it away because they shouldn't care, right? How many of us love writing YAML every day? Probably not a lot of us. Exactly. I'm a senior YAML engineer. It's like I like to call myself sometimes. If we can automate that process away and have a repeatable way of doing it, you're making those developers' lives way better. And then really, this one's kind of a soft one, but it's also sometimes lost of all these tools. Why did we do DevOps and all this stuff to begin with, right? What was it, like silos, no more silos, all that stuff? You are being seen as like kind of the team to break down and add communication to an organization, right? Foster good teamwork across. So one simple use case that we've kind of piloted internally, and I'm calling out both a Gemini and a Copilot solution because any language will work here, including Claude. Write a Python script that crawls my repositories, reviews their entry point, and writes a README. Who here loves writing READMEs? Not me. I hate them. Now, that being said, I could tell you a template to follow of what I love in a good README, but I hate all that meticulous typing of Docker run, oh wait, this is a -t, oh, So using these tools, you can then essentially build a good README to automate that for your organization. Now, don't merge it to main without some reviews, because I'm sure it's going to get you wrong. But if it could automate 90% of the READMEs that don't exist in our organization, the future developer who inherits that microservice is going to love you, or at least hate the AI that generated it. This is actually super cool. There was kind of this like cycle back in 23, 24 where IDPs, not like Okta and stuff, like internal developer portals were becoming all this hype. One-stop shop, you go into one spot, it'll make your repos. If you're familiar with like Backstage or Port, this is essentially kind of where you bring all your company's data together. And if you kind of see the theme of my talk, a lot of us are like, oh, we're just going to add a chatbot on top of it. If you look behind the scenes, you essentially just collaborated and we're building a lineage between all these disparate systems to essentially create like the world's best data model. And what does AI love? A very nicely laid out data model. How does a GitLab user refer to a Git repo? How does that Git repo refer to a Git pipeline? How does that Git pipeline connect into Kubernetes? And so on and so forth. It keeps going on. So with that, you have essentially built a context lake. You have your agents talk to your IDP of choice. Port, this is again very specific to Port, but Backstage is adding support for this too. You build in memory into these platforms. Hey, how do I do things repeatably? All the tools that I have access to, and more importantly, all those lovely integrations that you are building on how to connect. And because you have all this, you can build governance, guardrails, and scorecards, right? Similar workflow. You can create a golden path for your entire organization, kind of building on that. It's one for SRE, but you can make a multi-agent workflow. Imagine a world where you create a Jira ticket. A human creates a ticket saying, hey, I want a mobile app for my system. A ticket then goes into product planning and gives you a confidence score. Says, hey, I feel pretty confident that I can make a mobile app that's a good beta. From there, you say, all right, well, tell me what you need. What resources are going to use? From there, you can then say, write the actual code, create a repo, and review it. From there, you can then say, trigger security. From there, you can actually trigger a review, and then if you want to, you can trigger a deployment, right? As you start building these small components, again, step by step, you can take that mythical idea or those ideas that you see all the time on LinkedIn, like Jira ticket to code, right? Breaking it down, but build it with what works for your organization. So again, it's more than just platform engineers and developers. As platform engineers, you bring builders together to forge your own golden path. You bring in people from product, you bring in people from security, you bring in people from quality, you bring in people from SRE to build that path together with standards and freedom in mind. So I get it. Just do AI. Sprinkle it all over, right? Kind of back to square one. Well, this is the sad part of the talk. Despite $30 to $40 billion in enterprise investment into Gen AI, the report uncovers a surprising result that 95% of organizations are getting zero return. I argue because there's no thought to the stuff that you're doing. We're just burning money. So essentially, you add chatbots to our website that drive no value. That also has a hidden cost. Work slop. We've noticed in some of our initial trends a huge productivity spike at the start, but over the few months, we noticed that the code that was written is essentially getting reprocessed and reprocessed. A lot of us see this in real time. If you use like an agentic developer, you'll just watch the IDE just kind of burn away your tokens. You're like, you're out of the quota, come back later, right? Why? Because it was just arguing with itself. Well, the same thing happens with people, right? So if you had a 30% productivity gain, and the last few months, you're essentially just reviewing code that was essentially written by AI to fix the code by AI, that was fixing by code by AI, and then the next PR is fixing that code by AI. What productivity did we actually gain out of it as an organization? There's also some costs from the incidents. I'm not going to go down that path. I believe that, yes, there's some outages coming from it. But yes, look, these tools are expensive, and if without some strategy, it can be bad. So Joel, you just literally spent the last, 30, 40 minutes talking to us about AI solutions. What are you trying to get to us? There are benefits. They're evident. But have a well-defined strategy is exactly what I said at the start. Know how to measure your initiatives. Don't get caught in the hype. Don't go chasing the next big thing. Focus on getting initial solutions done and know what makes you successful. Mean time to resolve. Whether you were using AI or not, that was always something that we use to determine if we as an organization are getting better, right? So why, with AI, are we going to look at something different? With AI, after we adopted it, are we resolving incidents faster? Good. Most likely, maybe not, right? Scripting or writing code in this case. This is a bad example of what's called scripting manual time. If it took 12 hours for a team to script, I don't know, like network firewalls or something, but now with AI, you head down to 2 hours and you're able to measure that in Git commits. Again, don't look at like PRs. It's an overinflated metric. People think that like, oh look, GitHub Copilot made me 12 PRs. It's like, yeah, half of them are crap. Like, right? Like they're like half of them are either editing README, editing comments, security patches, right? All good things in the collaborative, but you're gonna run into like AI fatigue is like what I like to call it. You're reviewing instead of like a single, like I see a lot of AI engineers complain about this could have been one MR, or this could have been a consolidated set of MRs, right? Avoid common pitfalls. Think for yourselves and don't be sheep. Beware of hallucinations. I like this quote because it was actually a good, it was like kind of last year. LLMs are like 5-year-olds. They have the potential to go far and do great things, but don't also forget that they have imaginary best friends, like 5-year-olds do. So with that, be the pilot. So leverage AI with high agency, not to avoid work. Use it for engineering creativity, but don't get stuck in the loop. Have conscience to say, hey, I'm spending more time watching this thing trying to solve the problem than trying to understand the problem, right? There's no shame in learning how to do something with AI, but at the same time, take a step back and say, wait a second, I feel like I'm just kind of being trained in a cycle. Providing more context usually yields better results. There's also kind of a catch-22 with too much context. It could be a negative, but that's not the goal of the talk. The main thing is be as descriptive as possible. Like if you look at some of the prompts, and I know I went fast, you are a senior SRE with years of experience in Prometheus and Terraform. Based on this data that you have, give me an answer. It's going to yield you a better result than Terraform and Prometheus OTel, right? Check your homework. It's the same thing. Look at what it's going to propose it does, right? Like, is it going to destroy all your networks? Be careful out there, right? I've seen some gnarly Terraform suggestions. The Terraform that it generated was beautiful. It made modules, it made everything that I think is best practice, but it failed to consider the migration of state and the process of causing an outage in terms of rebuilding the entire database, right? So again, build your operational toolbox. We're all engineers. We have toolboxes, and the AI is no different. Whether you use Copilot or Gemini, whether you use VS Code or Anti-Gravity, or whatever fork of VS Code these days, since it keeps coming up, you're a pair programmer. Find things that find your pair programming stack. What are you using to write software? 2, what are you using to talk to it? Whether you're using M365 Copilot, whether you're using Gemini, whether you're using Cloud Assist, Azure Copilot, right? What are you using in the infrastructure tier? And then if you are so lucky to work within the custom side, Vertex AI or AI Foundry, like what are you doing to build? What are you using? Where are you running predictive analytics? Some of us also are lucky enough to run our own stack, but most of us either are looking to work at a company or like I really don't want to get into a war fighting for GPUs at this point. So I don't have the money that like Sam Altman or Elon have. I would always say create an implementation roadmap, and that usually is a 4-step process. Enable your teams to be successful with AI. So hey, start small. Get GitHub Copilot in people's seats. Get people talking about it. Run water coolers. Run events. Get people excited about building with these tools. After people know how to use these tools, select the non-critical critical workload. Please do not start with payment service at your company with AI. You may have an Initech, shaving a penny off your transactions. Measure. After you have something, either in the staging environment or rolled out to a limited subset, measure the impact that it's having. Do you feel that you're getting more transactions? Do you feel people, whether you're something consumer facing, look at analytics, look at trends. The same thing that you were doing before, same thing you're doing now. Am I losing customers? Am I gaining customers? Are people finding that there's value in this? Or are they just kind of quitting after like the first 5 interactions with this bot? And then from there, if it's well, scale. Start with human in the loop, right? Especially if you're making very important decisions. I work in healthcare, fortunately not in much critical life-saving healthcare, but I can tell you right now that I want to make sure whether we're charging you $1,000 or $100 for your dental appointment, because I would be very upset myself too. So some key takeaways, and this is kind of the last slide. AI is always improving and it's not done. Respect the history and the pain. That was what we talked about at the start. It will help you understand why specific areas are evolving, right? MCP, agents, why are these things coming about? If you know the whole workflow, the history of it, you're gonna understand why these things are developing. Now, don't be an expert in it, but at least know like, oh yeah, they kind of sucked a few years ago. There is no one more you than you. You are than you. Bring AI into your workflow. Don't change your workflow for AI. That's a Dr. Seuss quote. I love that book as a kid. And it's the same thing. Recognize what got you to your success and respect that. And just like the initial days of DevOps, experiment and fail fast. Don't get caught up in a long-term flow. Measure your impact the same way we do DevOps, Dora or whatever. Think the same way here. Be strategic and show value. Have fun, be creative, and go forth and build. Because you never know, how much progress you can make in a short amount of time. So with that, that's Q&A for myself. That's my slides. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. Just a shout out, there's a virtual Dev Fest going on for the GDG program, GDE. Would love to have you there. I'm going to be there just watching in, tuning in. It's virtual, so you can join from home. And we're looking to do more events in the future. But with that, we're at time. Do you have any questions or no?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Any questions? Any disagreements? And this talk was, I can't wait to go home and prove this guy wrong on X or something. What's up?
So in your field, have you seen the adoption of the AI workflows you discussed?
In your field, have you seen the adoption of the AI workflows you discussed increase? And was there like a large adoption jump in the recent memory of yours? And who were the resistors in the past?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was necessarily, so I'll answer in reverse. I don't think there was necessarily resistors. I just think that there was a lot of folks that were lost. Okay. So like the way I see it is like.
Could you expand on why as well?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm curious.
Yeah, so, for example, I'll use a very direct example, my SRE team. And Chinmay, I love you, but I'm gonna talk about it. So we initially were looking at our data versus like the actual problem we were trying to solve. So we were all saying we have to go put our Prometheus data sets inside of Vertex to build a model that I could ask questions. And really the answer was, what are we actually looking to do? What do people hate? People know that they have metrics, but they hate the fact that they have to make Grafana dashboards manually. So why not start with the path of least resistance and get people productive to start? Now, I'm not discrediting the fact that we have a large data set and we can build our own model, but like meeting our customers where they're at, the problem today is they didn't understand how to make dashboards, make problem go away, right? So now we have people that can ask questions of that data to create dashboards. And then over time, you can start, you saw like the example of like the anomaly detection and stuff, you can get there, but start small, right? Like meet your customers, especially, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you are way more advanced than I am, but like when we were starting, we were like, kids learning to ride the bike the first time. Was that, yeah,
Perfect.
cool.
Thank you.
What are some of your suggestions for people?
I'm recently making a career change. I was in workforce development for, nonprofit workforce development for like 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been self-taught for the last couple of years. What are some of your recommendations, like for someone like me I use a lot of these tools already, but what's some of your recommendations to focus on to, I guess, become employable or to, showcase my skills or what have you?
So you formerly workforce management?
I was pretty much, I helped people who were low-income people or SNAP beneficiaries get training with WIO or within SNAP or CHA.
Yeah.
But I was like building like in-house tools to help me do my job better because the nonprofits really don't have a tech budget. So, but I wanted to kind of get more formally into the industry.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think what I would kind of say is that whether you're helping someone get their benefits or helping someone internally like monitor a system or create the delivery pipeline, that skill set doesn't go away. So lean in on that a lot. That's first and foremost. Like the ability to help people is something that's very rare, and it's having empathy for the platform and the people that use your platform, right? Same, like I would have a lot of, in that position with those, I would want to make sure that platform is up, because you never know when someone needs to get that grocery or that item for their families. Same thing, kind of more lane, but like, hey, can I make sure that this enterprise employee is unblocked? So first off, keep that empathy there. Two, using these tools, look at custom experiences. The challenge is going to be like every company is going to be different, so I really don't have like a do it like this, but always meet people where they're at. So step one, analyze the field, and then from there, figure out where pain points are. Every system that we have always has something where people are like, oh, this tool, or this problem. Well, why? What's going on? Every time I have to log in and just, give it like this, all this data and search, the search is horrible. Oh, look, that's where we start. How do we make that better? What makes a good search? Well, there are people that are using this every day. What do they do different than this user? And I would say like that. But the first part is the empathetic side, and it's more not really an AI thing. Don't lose that. Seriously, that's really big. Anyone else? Cool. Oh, what's up?
How do you, within your organization, decide what trend of AI is useful for you?
Yeah. So if what I heard was, how do we in my current organization decide what's useful for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, we break it down into a few verticals. There is engineering excellence, which is kind of what makes our developers productive, and then on the flip side is what makes us like either more revenue or makes our platform better. Those are typically on the product side. So for example, I would equate rolling out Copilot to make our developers better, completely different than building an entire AI-enabled call center, right? And those require two different sets of focus. Whereas on the developer side, you're looking at more like tech tools and data and usage. Where on the flip side, you're getting creative into the experiences that are kind of problematic. Where are things falling apart? So usually when we look at these initiatives, they kind of have both similar problems with just a different audience. We try to find, what can we get immediate value, and then ultimately report back on the progress that we're doing. And if it starts deviating either back positively or negatively, what happened? Last month, the last 2 weeks of November, basically were just turn off your laptop. So what happened in November? Thanksgiving. A lot of us had PTO or holidays. So it wasn't a concern, it was just like, oh, well, we know now why. People are enjoying their time off, which is a good thing. Yeah, right? Unlimited PTO. But on the flip side, I would say look to those initiatives that you have going out and build those solid use cases from like an adoption from a customer perspective. And that I usually lean on actually either market research. Most companies have like research teams out there to see where pain points are, where people are falling off the funnel, right? Where people are going into your website and they click shop and then they just disappear into the ether. Well, what happened? Right? You obviously went to my website for a reason, whether you clicked an Instagram ad, whether you went directly to it, right? Whether you went from Google search. Now you went to the shop page. Did the price scare you away? Maybe we shouldn't have put the price right away. Maybe we should have put like learn the benefits and then ease people into like a payment program. Maybe if something costs like say $100, break that up into 4 installments, right? I'm kind of deviating from AI on that one, but in short, figure out where pathways are falling and use that data.
You had mentioned something about when you're using AI to write.
You had mentioned earlier something about how when you were using AI to write code or, do infrastructure type work, using AI to essentially write the code to spin up the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Do you have I guess I'd like to know about what your process is to validate that. Are you using multiple large language models? Do you have standardized prompts to say,
Yeah.
is this going to blow away all my stuff or whatever?
No, 100%.
Do you have a process that you would like to share?
I would say the first thing and foremost is that most of these agents have either an instruction set, or at least you could prompt it with instructions as to what to do or what not to do. So in our IAC repos, we have a section called Copilot instructions. It's actually a standard built into Copilot. We use GitHub Copilot for those that use it. In there, you can give it things like all variables must be underscores. You cannot destroy VPN tunnels. Things of that nature, so that when it goes to try and recommend options, it may even not work. It may actually tell you, like, you really need to destroy that VPN tunnel to do this change. You told me not to, but here's what you would do had you enabled me to do it. And then that's for us as humans in the loop to say, well, turns out we have to recreate our network. That's not something I'm going to do at 1 o'clock. I'm going to wait and talk to the team and say, hey, can we do this tonight at 9 o'clock, right? So I would say there's no like out of the box like we're going to be always safe, but can you give enough context as to what to do, what not to do, before and to add to your question is what I would say. That's what we do tangibly. Cool. Anything else?
Any questions? One more we can take. Okay.
Hi. I was curious on the validation of the automation pipeline.
Yeah.
So I know that it's going to be costly affair on too much iterations, and we're always not sure on if the code was generated is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to validate that? Is there a specific structure to that?
You mean like in reference to like the IAC example that I was just talking about?
Yeah.
Stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's essentially the same cycle. I would like to say that within, again, forget AI for a second. I know I'm here talking about AI. If you were doing a Terraform change or bicep or whatever, you typically do two things. You plan and you apply, right? What does plan do? It makes sure that things doesn't usually break. Sometimes they do, even though plan looks okay, but that's kind of a little bit after the fact. What I would say, instead of feeding these AI models with everything, if you're looking for a risk generation, build a risk score model into like what it's applying. If all you're doing is adding to something and not destroying anything, the risk is probably going to be, hey, this change is only 10%, right, of a risk. There's still risk. You're adding some stuff. Maybe you're giving admin to somebody, maybe 20%, right? Whereas if you have a change and you look at that plan output, which by the way, most pipelines should have that, whether you're using GitHub Actions, Spacelift, or any of these platforms, look at that output and say, oh, you're destroying 3 buckets. Those buckets were used in 5 different IAM policies, and now you're destroying 5 different things. Say, hey, the risk is high. I'm not going to auto-apply this. You need to review this. Yeah, that's what I would do. And that's kind of what we're kind of debating right now with some of our auto-apply pipelines. Right now, to be very tangible, we have a lot of automation that makes auto-applying very easy. But the concern is we still have governance, kind of going back to what I mentioned about for cloud engineering. You're responsible at the end of the day for the core principles of infrastructure, right? So, that bucket goes away and there was no retention policy, right? So I would say that, ensure and remember that you kind of, you have to build that into your workflow. Trust but verify is a phrase for better or worse, you've heard. Yeah.
On another note, what percentage automation is there in the current market right now in the DevOps pipelines?
You mean like percent?
Yeah.
I mean, I think every platform nowadays has AI. Whether you're using GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket or whatever, everyone's kind of selling these models, whether they're built into the platforms or not. I don't really have a good percentage, but I do know that at every stack there is something that can enable an AI workflow. Whether you're doing it yourself through, like, again, everything that I talk to is not tied to a vendor. Sorry, Microsoft. Sorry, Google. Like looking at Terraform pipelines, you don't need to pay anyone for that. Right? You could build a good model with what you have. Now, can it be made better? 100%. Hi, Google. Hi, Microsoft. I'd love to pay you to help do some of this. Give me your SRE agent. Give me your delivery DevOps agent, right? Like, give me that. You know what I mean? So, like, depending on where you are in the cycle, I would say that you could, you get really far with good prompts, and then with that, leading into, like, agentic development. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, thank you guys for
Yeah.
coming.
Thanks everybody for having me. Have a good one.
Looking forward to the next ones as well. Next, we're going to be doing one sold in January. And yeah, I'd like to wish you guys a happy holidays in advance, and a happy New Year.
Yeah.
Thank
Woo!
you.
See everybody. All right.